the night that changes everything. There's a moment, right after the sun sets, when the world feels different. It's quiet, not empty, but peaceful, like every sound is wrapped in softness. And in that silence, a believer stands up, takes a breath, and whispers to the heart, "Tonight, I begin again." That's the magic of Taraweeh. It's not just a prayer. It's a journey and emotional reset that only the night can give. People walk into the masjid carrying different stories. Some come with guilt that's been sitting on their chest for months. Some come with secrets only Allah knows. Some walk in with broken hearts, hoping the night will stitch together the pieces. And some come simply because their heart is tired of the world and craves the one who never lets go. The lights inside the masjid are warm. The carpet feels familiar, and when the imam raises his hands and says, "Allahu Akbar," it feels like the heart finally exhales. Suddenly, the dunya is not inside you anymore, it's behind you. What's in front of you is Allah. As the first verses of the Quran flow through the air, something shifts. You don't always understand every word, but the soul does. The recitation pulls you gently, sometimes like a whisper, sometimes like a wave. And in that moment, you realize Taraweeh isn't about how long you stand. It's about how deeply you feel. Every ayah hits differently. Some make your chest feel lighter. Some make your eyes burn with tears you kept holding back. Some remind you of mistakes you buried. And some remind you that Allah has been patient with you. Far more patient than you have been with yourself. People around you stand shoulder to shoulder, but each one is on a private journey. A man in the first row wipes a tear before it falls. A young boy tries to follow the imam's voice, hoping Allah notices his effort. A sister in the back keeps whispering silent du'as she never had the courage to say out loud. And someone, somewhere, is silently saying, "Ya Allah, bring me back to you." Taraweeh is the night where hearts finally speak, where guilt melts, where hope rises, and where you realize Allah was never far. It was you who needed to step into the night to feel His closeness again. When you stand, the heart awakens. There's something about the moment you rise for the next rak'ah. Your body moves almost automatically, but your heart, it wakes up a little more each time. Standing in Taraweeh is not just about posture. It's about presenting your soul in front of the one who shaped it. And as you place your hands over your chest, you feel it, the shift from routine to connection. The imam begins reciting again, and suddenly the space around you feels alive. Every ayah feels deliberate, every pause full of meaning. It's as if Allah is speaking directly to your fears, your regrets, your dreams, your wounds. And you start realizing that night prayers don't just strengthen your faith, they expose your heart. They show you exactly who you've been and who you still have a chance to become. Your mind drifts like it always does. Thoughts of work, family, stress, mistakes. They come and go, but this time something is different. You're not running after them. You're letting them pass, one by one, like clouds moving across a calm sky. The night has a way of reminding you that nothing in this world is more important than the moment you're in right now. Then comes an ayah about mercy, about forgiveness, about Allah's nearness, and your heart tightens. You think about all the times you walked too far from him, all the times you knew you were wrong but didn't stop. Yet here you are, standing, listening, hoping, and somehow you feel it. Allah hasn't closed the door. He never does. Taraweeh becomes the proof. Around you, the masjid breathes. People sway gently as they listen. Someone wipes their face as if hiding tears. A young boy leans against his father, trying to keep up but slowly drifting into sleep. An old man stands even though his back is hurting. He refuses to miss a single word. Every person has a story, but tonight, every story finds the same destination, Allah. And when you bow into ruku, something inside you softens. You're not just bending your back, you're lowering your ego, your pain, your mistakes. You stay in that position a moment longer, silently telling Allah what your lips cannot form. By the time you rise again, the heart is softer, calmer, more awake than it was an hour ago. Taraweeh does that. It doesn't change your life in one night, but it begins with changing something deep inside you, one rak'ah at a time. The ayah that breaks you and heals you. There comes a moment in every Taraweeh night when a single ayah lands differently. You don't expect it. You don't prepare for it. But when the imam recites it, something deep inside you trembles. It's not just meaning, it's impact. It's the kind of verse that doesn't ask for your attention. It demands your heart. Maybe it's an ayah about Jannah, and you suddenly imagine yourself walking through gates you pray you're worthy of. Maybe it's an ayah about Jahannam, and you feel a cold shiver of fear that wakes your soul. Or maybe it's the ayah where Allah says, He is closer to you than your jugular vein, closer than your past, your mistakes, your excuses. Whatever the verse is, that moment becomes the emotional peak of your night. Your eyes lower, your throat tightens, and you feel the tear before it even falls. It's not weakness, it's recognition. It's the heart saying, Ya Allah, I needed this. Suddenly, the masjid around you fades. You don't see the rows. You don't hear the soft coughs or the shifting feet. You hear only the Quran, raw, beautiful, powerful. And for the first time in a long time, you feel seen, not by people, not by the world, but by the one who created every emotion you're experiencing. You remember your mistakes not to drown in them, but because Allah is guiding you away from them. You think about the duas you've been holding in your chest. You think about the moments you disappointed yourself, and it all blends together into one quiet plea. Ya Allah, fix what's broken in me. Around you, the same thing is happening to others in their own silent ways. A young woman near the back wipes her eyes behind her hijab. A man who walked into the masjid like he was carrying the world suddenly looks lighter. A father has his hand on his son's shoulder, and you can tell he's praying that Allah fills his child's life with guidance. No one knows each other's struggles, yet everyone is healing together. And then, just as your heart is softest, the imam pauses. A brief silence fills the room, heavy, meaningful, sacred. It feels like your heart is suspended in that moment, like Allah is giving you a window to breathe, reflect, and return. When the recitation continues, something inside you is already different, softer, cleaner, more alive. That's the power of one ayah, one moment, one night, one step closer to Allah. The silent doers you never say out loud. There's a moment in Taraweeh when the imam goes into sujood and the world disappears. Your forehead touches the ground, your breath slows, and your heart opens in a way it never does during the day. This is the place where masks fall off, where the soul finally speaks its truth. Because in sujood, you're the closest you can ever be to Allah, and your heart knows it. You don't speak loudly. You don't form perfect sentences. But in that quiet darkness beneath you, your heart pours out what your lips never had the courage to say. Ya Allah, help me. Ya Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, don't leave me alone. These are not just words. They're pieces of your soul you've been carrying for years. Pain you never shared, fears you never admitted, dreams you never voiced. And suddenly, in the most vulnerable moment of the night, they slip out because you're finally talking to the one who understands without explanations. Around you, the entire masjid is doing the same, an ocean of bowed heads, each whispering secrets only Allah hears. A mother asks for her children's protection. A father begs for a door of rizq to open. Someone who made too many mistakes is asking for a second chance. Someone heartbroken is asking for peace. Someone lost is asking for light. And the beauty is, no one knows, yet everyone is connected. As you rise from sujood, you feel a shift. Something inside loosens like a knot that has been tight for too long. You don't know if your problems are solved. You don't know if your duas are accepted. But you do know one thing. You finally said what your heart needed to say. The night continues, rak'ah after rak'ah, sujood after sujood. And every time your head touches the ground, your heart becomes lighter. You start to realize that Taraweeh is not about how long you stand, it's about how deeply you kneel. It's where your ego breaks, your pain spills out, and your hope rises again. By the end of the prayer, you're not the same person who walked into the masjid. Something changed inside you quietly, gently, beautifully. You feel closer to Allah, not because your life is perfect, but because you finally admitted that you need Him more than ever. And that admission is the beginning of transformation. When the masjid becomes a sanctuary, there's a special calm that settles inside the masjid during Taraweeh. It doesn't feel like a building anymore. It feels like a sanctuary somewhere. Your heart escapes to when the world becomes too loud. The moment you walk in, the lights feel softer, the atmosphere warmer, and the silence almost healing. You realize you're not just entering a place of worship. You're stepping into a space where the soul can finally breathe. People come in from different lives, some exhausted from work, some overwhelmed by responsibilities, some carrying sadness they hide from everyone. But the moment they cross that threshold, something shifts. The dunya stays at the door, and peace waits inside. You take your spot, settle your shoulders, and feel this quiet message in your chest. You're safe here. As the imam begins reciting, the masjid feels alive, not noisy, but spiritually full. The words of the Quran echo softly, wrapping around every corner, filling every heart. You look around and you see its unity. Strangers standing shoulder to shoulder, breathing in rhythm, moving in harmony. No one asks your background, your income, your problems. In Taraweeh, everyone is equal. Everyone is a servant. Everyone is seeking the same mercy. You catch small details that make the night even more beautiful. A child leaning on his father, trying to stay awake. An old man gripping the Quran's stand for support, refusing to miss a single rak'ah. A young woman with tired eyes who suddenly looks peaceful during sujood. A brother with calloused hands from labor work standing with the softness of a believer. These moments remind you that the masjid is not just a place, it's a home for every soul searching for Allah. And then there's the silence between verses. That gentle pause where the entire room feels like it's holding its breath. You can hear hearts beating, minds reflecting, souls returning. It's in those pauses that you feel closest to Allah, as if He's inviting you to think, to feel, to come back to Him completely. By the time another rak'ah ends, you realize something profound. You didn't come to the masjid to escape life, you came to understand it. Taraweeh teaches you that the world makes sense only when your heart is connected to the one who controls it. And in that sacred space, with the Quran echoing around you, you feel it deeply. This sanctuary isn't outside you. It's being built inside you night after night. The weight you didn't realize you were carrying. There's a strange thing that happens during Taraweeh. You begin the night thinking you're fine, thinking you're strong enough, stable enough, unaffected by the world. You walk into the masjid believing you're just here for prayer. But as the night unfolds, you slowly realize something. You've been carrying far more weight than you ever admitted. It shows in the way your shoulders relax during the first rak'ah. It shows in the breath you release during the first sujood. It shows in the tightness in your chest that starts to melt as the imam recites. Taraweeh doesn't just connect you to Allah, it exposes what your heart has been hiding. You start remembering things you pushed aside. The disappointments, the fears, the words you never said, the moments you pretended didn't hurt. You remember the stress, the failures, the loneliness, the prayers you never made because you thought Allah might not listen. But now, standing in the stillness of the night, you feel it rising inside you, the truth that you've been carrying way too much on your own. And then something beautiful happens. The Quran begins to speak to those exact burdens. The Imam recites an ayah about patience, and your heart whispers, "That's for me." Another ayah speaks about Allah never giving a soul more than it can bear, and suddenly the weight feels a little lighter. Another ayah reminds you that Allah is the one who answers the caller when they call upon Him. And for the first time in a long time, you feel heard. Around you, everyone else is going through the same silent release. A brother rubs his eyes before the tears fall. A sister clutches her hands tightly as if holding on to hope. A young man who walked in with anger on his face now stands softer. Taraweeh becomes a mirror showing you that you're not alone in your struggle. As the night goes on, you feel something you haven't felt in months: relief. Not because your problems disappeared, but because your heart finally found somewhere safe to place them. In every rak'ah, you put down a little more. In every sujood, you hand over another piece of your burden. In every ayah, Allah reminds you that He's been waiting for you to return. By the time the Imam says salam, you feel lighter, clearer, renewed. The weight you carried all this time wasn't yours to carry alone. Taraweeh helps you let go one prayer at a time. When the Quran feels like it's speaking directly to you, There's a moment in Taraweeh when you stop hearing the Quran with your ears and start hearing it with your heart. It doesn't happen every night, and it never happens on command. But when it does, it feels like the entire world pauses just so. Allah can speak to you through His words. The Imam begins a new surah, and at first, you're just listening. You're following the rhythm, the beauty, the melody. But then suddenly, an ayah lands, not softly, not gently, but like it was written for you, about you, and because of you. You freeze, your breath slows, your heart whispers, "How did Allah know this is exactly what I needed right now?" Maybe it's an ayah about forgiveness, and instantly you remember the sins you've been burying under excuses. Maybe it's an ayah about gratitude, and your mind flashes to blessings you've been ignoring. Maybe it's an ayah about fear, and suddenly every worry you've carried makes sense. Or maybe it's an ayah promising mercy, and you feel something inside you breaking in the most beautiful way. You blink, trying to hold the emotion together, but the Quran is not done with you yet. Another ayah hits, then another, and slowly you feel your walls falling. The walls you built to stay strong. The walls you built to avoid feeling. The walls you built because life has been heavier than people realize. Around you, the entire masjid is lost in the recitation. But for you, it feels intimate, like Allah pulled you out from the crowd and placed your heart directly in front of His words. The Quran begins to reveal things about you that you never said out loud. Your weaknesses, your hopes, your regrets, your silent battles. And instead of feeling exposed, you feel understood, seen, guided. You realize something powerful. You're not listening to the Quran. The Quran is listening to you. As the recitation continues, tears finally escape not from sadness, but from recognition, from relief, from the quiet realization that Allah never forgot you, even when you forgot Him. And when the rak'ah ends, you stand there, still absorbing it all, feeling like the Quran didn't just touch your heart, it rearranged it. That's the miracle of Taraweeh. Each night, a different ayah chooses you. Each night, Allah sends a message written in a language only your soul can understand. The night your heart learns to slow down. Life moves fast, too fast. Deadlines, responsibilities, expectations. Everything pushes you to keep going even when your heart is tired. But Taraweeh is the one moment in the entire day when time slows down. Not because the clock changes, but because your soul finally does. The moment the Imam begins the next rak'ah, your heartbeat settles into a softer rhythm. You're not rushing anywhere. You're not thinking about what's next. For once, you're fully present in a moment that feels bigger than the world outside. You stand still, and something inside you whispers, "Slow down, breathe, feel." The verses flow like gentle waves. Each ayah washes over you, peeling away the tension you didn't realize you were holding. Your shoulders ease, your jaw loosens, the tightness in your chest starts to fade. It's like the night itself is reteaching you how to live calmly, consciously, spiritually. You start noticing details you never noticed in daylight. The softness of the carpet beneath your feet. The quiet hum of unity in the rows beside you. The echo of the Imam's voice traveling through the masjid like a breeze. The way your heart reacts to every pause, every rise, every breath. This slowdown feels healing. Around you, the same shift is happening. A young man who walked in fidgety and stressed now stands still, peaceful. An older woman who usually moves quickly now slows her steps, savoring every moment of sujood. Even the restless child in the corner calms, his tiny hand wrapped around his father's finger, watching the prayer with wide, curious eyes. Taraweeh becomes a place where emotions breathe. The tension you carried from work melts. The frustration you hid from family softens. The fear you never spoke about loosens its grip. It's not because your problems disappeared. It's because you finally stepped into a space where the soul isn't rushed. When you go into ruku, your spine stretches, your mind clears, and your heart whispers a quiet gratitude. When you rise, you feel lighter not physically, but emotionally. And when you fall into sujood, time feels like it stops completely. In that one prostration, life slows down to its purest form. You, the earth, and Allah. By the time you sit for tashahhud, you realize something profound. Your life wasn't overwhelming because you had too much to do. It was overwhelming because you forgot to pause. Taraweeh brings that pause back, not for your schedule, but for your soul. The tears you didn't plan to cry. There's a point in Taraweeh when emotion hits you without warning. You didn't walk into the masjid expecting it. You didn't prepare for it. But somewhere between an ayah about mercy and the pause in the imam's voice, the tears come, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like your heart finally found the courage to release what it's been holding. At first, you try to blink them back. You try to stay composed. You tell yourself, it's okay, not here, not now. But the heart doesn't listen to rules. It listens to truth. And tonight, the truth is heavier than your silence. Maybe the tears come from guilt. Maybe from relief. Maybe from longing. Maybe from exhaustion. Or maybe from feeling all as closeness after being distant for too long. Around you, no one notices, but if they did, they'd understand. Because in Taraweeh, everyone has cried at least once. Everyone knows what it feels like to stand tall while breaking inside. Everyone knows the power of a single ayah that opens a door inside the soul. A brother beside you keeps his head down a little longer than usual. His shoulders shake softly, he's crying too, carrying stories you'll never know. A sister in the back wipes her tears with her sleeve, overwhelmed by emotions she kept buried all year. A teenager who walked in with a tough expression now looks fragile. Humbled by the words of Allah, Taraweeh makes hearts honest. You can pretend in front of people. You can act strong outside. You can hide pain with laughter. But in front of Allah, the truth shows, and the tears become the proof. As they fall, something beautiful happens. You don't feel weak. You don't feel embarrassed. You feel cleansed. Every tear carries a burden away, regret, fear, sadness. Loneliness washing your heart the way rain cleans a dusty window. Suddenly, the world inside you feels clearer, softer, lighter. The imam continues, and now the ayahs feel even deeper. With each word, you feel Allah soothing what hurt, comforting what broke, strengthening what felt fragile. When the rak'ah ends, you wipe your face, not because you're trying to hide the tears, but because you're ready for more healing. And as you stand again, something whispers inside you. Tonight, Allah touched your heart. Let Him keep healing it. You didn't plan to cry, but maybe that's the mercy of Taraweeh, the kind that reaches the places you never talked about and cleans them quietly. The moment you realize Allah never left you, there comes a moment in Taraweeh when everything becomes clear, not through words, not through logic, but through feeling so deep that it settles into your chest and stays there. It's the moment when you realize Allah never left you, not even once, not during your worst mistakes, not during your silent nights, not during the times you thought you were alone. It happens quietly. The Imam recites an ayah about Allah's mercy, and suddenly your heart starts remembering every moment you survived, moments you thought were coincidences, moments you thought you handled alone. But now, in the stillness of the masjid, you see it differently. You see the hidden help, the unspoken protection, the blessings you didn't notice, the doors that opened when they shouldn't have, the comfort that came when no one knew you needed it. Your heart whispers, "That was Allah." Every time you stand there, overwhelmed by gratitude you didn't expect to feel tonight. Every breath feels like a gift. Every heartbeat feels intentional. You realize how many times you walked away from Allah, yet He never took a single step away from you. Around you, others feel it too. A man who carried guilt for years suddenly looks relieved, like he finally understands forgiveness is real. A mother who worried about her children finds a quiet reassurance settling into her soul. A young girl with confused eyes now looks certain, almost like she found direction she didn't know she needed. Taraweeh has a way of revealing the truth beneath your stress, beneath your doubts, beneath your mistakes. It shows you that Allah wasn't waiting for you to be perfect. He was waiting for you to return. When the Imam transitions into ruku, you bow with a heart that feels lighter than it did an hour ago. You stay a moment longer, whispering, "Alhamdulillah, for never letting me go." And when you rise, the world looks different, not because the world changed, but because your heart did. Then comes sujood, the place where truths are clearest. With your forehead on the ground, you feel it completely. Allah was there in your pain. Allah was there in your confusion. Allah was there in your loneliness. Allah was there when you were lost. And Allah is here now, accepting you again. By the time you sit for tashahhud, one reality echoes through your soul. You didn't come back to Allah tonight. You simply opened your eyes to see He was always with you. The night you start talking to Allah again, there's a moment during Taraweeh when something shifts, not in the masjid, not in the recitation, but inside you. A moment when you realize you're not just listening anymore. You're responding, not with your tongue, but with your heart. And slowly, quietly, you start talking to Allah again. You don't plan it, it just happens. While standing in the next rak'ah, an ayah about hope pulls you in. Your heart whispers a sentence, small, soft, honest. "Ya Allah, I'm trying." And that's it. The wall you built around your emotions begins to crack. A few more verses go by, and another thought slips out. "Ya Allah, guide me." Then another, "Ya Allah, fix my life." You realize you're having a conversation your soul has been waiting months, maybe years for. Taraweeh opens that door. Around you, the whole masjid seems to be doing the same. Each person silently reconnecting with their Creator. A brother with trembling hands keeps them raised a moment longer. as if he's scared the moment will leave. A sister bites her lip, holding back tears as she mouths a dua too heavy to speak aloud. Even the quiet teenager in the corner, who looked distracted at first, now has a softness in his eyes you didn't see before. Taraweeh makes hearts talk as the Imam recites a verse about Allah's knowledge of your struggles. Your eyes close for a second. Your heart whispers another truth. You know what I can't say. And in that moment, you feel something you have been missing for a long time: connection. The kind that reaches deeper than words, deeper than ritual. A connection that feels personal, intimate, familiar. You talk to Allah about your mistakes not with fear, but with hope. You talk to Him about your future not with anxiety, but with trust. You talk to Him about your wounds not to complain, but because you finally believe He can heal them. Then comes sujood. Your forehead meets the earth, and suddenly the conversation becomes clearer, rawer, realer. You whisper your fears, your secrets, your dreams, asking Allah to take what hurts, protect what matters, and guide what confuses. This is not the formal dua you make after Salah. This is the conversation your soul has been begging for. When you rise, your heart feels lighter not because everything is fixed, but because you remembered who to talk to. And tonight, you spoke to Allah again, and that is the beginning of every change. The strength you didn't know you had. Taraweeh has a way of showing you parts of yourself you forgot existed. You walk into the masjid thinking you're tired, drained, maybe even broken. But somewhere between the long standing, the deep sujood, and the intense recitation, you discover a strength you didn't know was there. The Imam begins another rak'ah, and your legs already feel heavy. Your mind whispers, maybe skip the next one, maybe sit, maybe you're too tired tonight. But then the Quran rises in the air, soft, powerful, commanding, and something inside you responds with a quiet refusal. No, keep going. And you do. You stand a little longer than you thought you could. You hold your ruku a little deeper than yesterday. You stay in sujood a little more than required because your heart doesn't want to rise yet. This is strength, not physical strength, but spiritual endurance, the kind that pushes you past your limits with a softness only Allah can give. Around you, the same miracle is unfolding. An old man who walks slowly outside the masjid suddenly stands steady through every rak'ah, refusing to sit down unless absolutely necessary. A weary mother with tired eyes still finds the courage to stand, whispering duas for her children between breaths. A young man who struggles with his faith stands tall, motivated by a hope he's just beginning to understand. You realize something beautiful. You're not strong because you trained for this. You're strong because Allah placed that strength inside you. Every time you think you can't continue, Allah shows you that you can. Every time you feel like stopping, Allah gives your heart another push. Every time you think you're weak, Taraweeh proves you wrong. The real strength isn't in standing during long prayers. It's in standing before Allah with a tired heart and still saying, I'm here. When the Imam begins the second half of the prayer, you're surprised by yourself. You're not exhausted the way you expected. In fact, there's a strange peace in your body, a kind of energy that doesn't feel physical at all. It feels like barakah, like help, like divine support. By the time the prayer ends, You sit for a moment, letting your breath settle, and it hits you. You walked in weak, but you walked out strong. Not because life got easier, but because Allah reminded you of the strength He placed in you long before you ever needed it. When the heart learns to listen, there comes a point in every Taraweeh journey where the body gets used to the routine, the mind adjusts to the rhythm, and what remains is the heart. Part 13 is that turning point. This is when Taraweeh stops feeling like something you perform and starts becoming something you listen to deeply, with every layer of your soul paying attention. Tonight, the masjid feels different. You walk in with a quieter mind. The chatter is less, the rush is gone, and the air feels calmer than usual. You find your spot, place your hand on your chest, and you realize your heartbeat is slower, steadier, almost as if it has learned the pace of Ramadan itself. Then the recitation begins, but this time, the Quran doesn't feel like sound. It feels like meaning. The verses don't just enter your ears, they enter your heart. And with every word, you feel something inside you respond. Soften, wake up. When the Imam recites stories of the prophets, you feel like they're speaking directly to you. Their struggles feel familiar. Their hope feels comforting. Their faith feels like a map you wish you had followed earlier in your life. You start realizing that this journey of Taraweeh is not just about worship. It's about understanding yourself in the light of Allah's words. Tonight, you notice your heart reacting faster than your mind. When a verse about mercy is recited, your heart feels warmth. When a verse about accountability comes, your heart tightens. When Jannah is mentioned, you feel longing. When Jahannam is mentioned, you feel a shake inside your ribcage. That is the moment you realize Taraweeh has taught your heart how to listen. It's not about the length of prayer, the number of rakas, or even how perfectly you stand. It's about allowing the Quran to become a conversation between you and Allah. A conversation where you don't speak, you just receive. By the end of the night, you leave the masjid slowly, almost carefully, as if you're afraid of breaking the spiritual silence that settled inside you. You sit in your car for a moment before driving, staring ahead, feeling everything and saying nothing. Because sometimes the greatest transformation happens in a night where you didn't cry loudly, didn't shake, didn't fall apart. You simply listened, and your heart finally said, "I hear you, my Lord." The weight of a single ayah. There are nights in Taraweeh when the Imam recites page after page, and you follow along with steady focus. But then, there are nights like tonight. Nights when a single ayah carries more weight than the entire world. Tonight, you don't just hear an ayah. You feel it break something open inside you. You walk into the masjid with the same calm rhythm of Ramadan. The carpet feels familiar under your feet. The soft murmurs of people waiting for Isha wrap around you like a warm blanket. You're tired, but not in a defeated way. More like someone who has given a lot and still has something left to give. Taraweeh begins. The Imam recites slowly tonight. His voice gentle, controlled, filled with something you can't quite name. Then he stops on one verse, one ayah, and repeats it again and again. At first, you think it's a mistake. Then you realize it's intentional. The ayah being repeated hits something deep inside you. It could be about Allah's mercy, or forgiveness, or patience, or the reality of the hereafter. But for some reason, this one ayah feels like it was placed in your life exactly on this night. With every repetition, it feels heavier, not in a painful way, but in a way that clears the noise inside you. You start reflecting. How many chances did Allah give me? How much did I ignore? How much did I rush through life, forgetting what truly matters? And suddenly, that one ayah becomes a mirror. You see versions of yourself, your mistakes, your regrets, your unrealized potential, all reflected in the meaning of these words. Your throat tightens, your eyes burn, but the tears don't fall. Not yet. Because tonight isn't about crying. It's about understanding. It's about realizing that Allah can reshape your entire heart with just a single verse if He wants to. It's about realizing that guidance doesn't always come in grand moments. Sometimes it comes in one ayah repeated quietly, in a room full of people, where you stand silently, feeling seen in a way you can't explain. When the prayer ends, you remain in sujood a little longer, not asking for anything, not complaining, not promising, just acknowledging that one ayah changed you, acknowledging that Allah reached you, acknowledging that Taraweeh is not just prayer, it is divine communication, one verse at a time. When sujood feels like home, there comes a moment in every believer's Taraweeh journey when sujood stops feeling like a posture and starts feeling like a place where your heart settles, where your fears shrink, where your soul feels closest to the one who created it. Tonight is that moment, the night sujood finally feels like home. As Isha ends and Taraweeh begins, you already feel a strange pull in your chest. You're not rushing through the motions anymore. Your body is not resisting the length of the prayer. Your mind is not wandering. Instead, everything inside you feels aligned toward one simple desire: to place your head on the ground for Allah. The recitation flows beautifully. You listen, you absorb, you follow each verse, like a traveler following a trail in the desert, thirsty for guidance. And then, when the Imam says Allahu Akbar, something inside you shifts. You go into sujood, and the world disappears. The carpet feels softer tonight. The darkness under your forehead feels protective. The silence around you feels deep. For the first time in a long time, your heart speaks before your tongue does. You whisper words you haven't said in years. You confess things you've kept inside. You ask for things you were too embarrassed to ask for out loud. You feel your chest shaking, not from crying, but from the weight of releasing everything you've held for too long. Because sujood is not just a position, it is a sanctuary. It is the one place where no one sees your face except the one who knows your heart. It is the one place where you can break without feeling broken, where you can empty your pain and still leave fuller than when you came. Tonight, your sujood lasts longer. You don't want to rise. It feels like if you stay here long enough, everything inside you will finally make sense. Your fears, your hopes, your mistakes, your future, all of it feels clearer when your forehead is on the ground. When you finally rise, your chest feels lighter, your breathing steadier, your faith stronger, and as you stand for the next rak'ah, one thought stays with you. If this is what sujood feels like, imagine what Jannah, will feel like. For the first time, you understand why the Prophet found comfort in prayer. Because tonight, sujood wasn't worship, it was home. The night your duas start to change. There is a stage in the Taraweeh journey when your duas stop sounding like a list and start sounding like a surrender. A stage where you're no longer asking Allah for what you think is best. You're asking Him for what He knows is best. Tonight is that night. Tonight, your duas change. You arrive at the masjid with a strange mix of calm and anticipation. It's not the excitement of the first nights of Ramadan, nor the exhaustion of the middle ones. It's something different, something deeper. You feel like you're walking into a moment Allah has prepared just for you. The recitation begins with a softness that sinks slowly into your heart. The verses tonight are about trust, patience, and relying completely on Allah as you listen. You start realizing something you never noticed before. Almost every story in the Quran is about a person making dua and Allah answering in ways they never expected. Musa asked for clarity. Allah gave him miracles. Yunus asked for rescue. Allah gave him a new beginning. Maryam asked for ease. Allah gave her honor. And suddenly, your own duas feel small. Not wrong, not pointless, just incomplete. Because for so long, your dua has been, Ya Allah, give me what I want. But tonight, it becomes, Ya Allah, give me what is best for me, even if I don't see it yet. When the Imam pauses and the next sujood arrives, your heart falls into a softness you didn't expect. Your forehead touches the ground, and your entire body feels like it's melting into sincerity. Your voice shakes, not from sadness, but from clarity. You don't ask Allah to fix every problem anymore. You ask Him to guide you through them. You don't ask Him to remove every hardship. You ask Him to strengthen your heart. You don't ask Him to give you everything you dream of. You ask Him to give you what will bring you closer to Him. And that shift, that small, quiet shift, feels like the beginning of a new chapter in your life. When the prayer ends, you sit for a moment, staring at your hands, realizing that tonight wasn't just another night of Ramadan. Tonight, you didn't make dua out of desperation. You made dua out of trust, and that kind of dua is the beginning of every miracle Allah writes for you. When the Quran becomes a memory, not a recitation, there is a night in Taraweeh when the Quran stops feeling like something you hear and starts feeling like something you've known all along. A night when the verses sound strangely familiar, not because you memorized them, but because your soul recognizes them. Tonight is that night. The night the Quran becomes a memory instead of a recitation. You enter the masjid a little slower than usual. The calmness in the air feels deeper, as if the whole building is breathing with you. People around you are settling in, adjusting their prayer mats, whispering quiet dhikr. And for the first time, you realize something. This place has become part of you. As Taraweeh begins, the Imam starts reciting verses about faith, sacrifice, loss, patience, and Allah's unwavering promise. And suddenly, you feel like you've heard these words before. Not last Ramadan, not in a lecture, not on a YouTube clip, but somewhere inside. Every verse tonight feels like a reminder, not a lesson. A gentle tap on your heart saying, you already know this. Your soul has heard it before. You feel emotions you can't easily explain. The Quran starts connecting dots in your life. A verse about hardship reminds you of a painful chapter you survived. A verse about forgiveness reminds you of mistakes you've been carrying. A verse about Jannah reminds you of the people you love who returned too. Allah long before you were ready to let them go. It feels like the Quran is narrating your story. During sujood, you realize something even more profound. These verses were always meant for you. Allah sent them 1400 years ago, but He scheduled their impact for this exact night. You rise from sujood feeling different, lighter, clearer, more aware. When the Imam continues, you notice your lips moving along softly, not reciting perfectly, but following naturally, as if your heart is filling in the gaps your memory doesn't know. And you think to yourself, maybe this is what it means when people say the Quran is alive. Maybe this is how Allah speaks to His servants, through reminders, not just rules. By the end of Taraweeh, you sit quietly, watching the people leave. You don't rush. You don't look at your phone. You don't feel the need to say anything. Because tonight, the Quran didn't just enter your ears. It awakens something ancient inside you, a memory your soul has carried since before you were born. Tonight, the Quran remembered you, the stillness that changes everything. There comes a night in Taraweeh when the transformation doesn't happen during the recitation, or in sujood, or even in dua, but in the stillness between everything. A night where silence becomes louder than words, deeper than tears, and more powerful than any emotion you've felt so far. Tonight is that night. The night when stillness changes you. You walk into the masjid expecting another beautiful, emotional prayer. But the moment you step inside, something feels different. The air is unusually quiet. People are calmer. Even your own footsteps sound softer. It feels like the entire room is waiting for something sacred. When the Imam begins reciting, the verses flow gently, almost slowly, as if they're giving you time to breathe between every sentence. You listen, you follow, but the real impact comes not from the sound, but from the silence that follows each ayah. That silence hits you like a wave, a silence that isn't empty. It's full of reflection, full of presence, full of a piece you didn't know you were missing. In that stillness, you suddenly become aware of yourself in a way you weren't before. Your heartbeat, your breathing, the weight of your chest slowly releasing stress you didn't know you were carrying. And beneath all of that, a softness spreading inside your heart. You begin to understand something. Taraweeh isn't only about the verses you hear. It's also about the space Allah creates around those verses, so they can settle in your soul. As the prayer continues, you notice how every silent moment after Allahu Akbar, every pause before the next surah, every breath between sujood and standing again, all of it feels meaningful, purposeful, designed. And in those quiet moments, thoughts rise that you've been avoiding, people you need to forgive, habits you need to change, dreams you need to chase, wounds you need to heal. It's as if Allah is showing you your entire life in fragments, lit softly by His mercy. By the time Taraweeh ends, you're not overwhelmed. You're clear, more clear than you've been in months, maybe even years. You sit for a while, letting the silence sit with you, because you don't want to lose it too quickly. When you finally stand to leave, one thought echoes in your heart. Maybe the answers I've been searching for weren't hidden. I was just too loud inside to hear them. Tonight, the stillness spoke, and your soul finally listened. The night you realize you're not the same person anymore. There comes a night in the Taraweeh journey when you look at yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your inner world, and you suddenly realize, I'm not the same person anymore. It doesn't happen with fireworks or dramatic tears. It happens quietly, gently, almost without you noticing, until something inside you finally whispers the truth. Tonight is that night. You walk into the masjid just like every other night, but the way you carry yourself feels different. There's more calm in your steps, more humility in your posture, more softness in your heart. Even the way you greet someone carries warmth you didn't have weeks ago. As Taraweeh begins, the verses flow over you like a familiar ocean. You're not struggling to focus anymore. You're not fighting distractions. It feels natural, like your heart knows exactly where to go. Then, something happens during the recitation. The Imam recites verses about transformation, about how Allah changes the hearts of believers, about how guidance softens a person from the inside out, about how faith reshapes the soul quietly over time. And hearing it, you suddenly recognize yourself in those words. You think about who you were before Ramadan started. A heart tired and cluttered, a soul restless, a mind full of noise, a life full of habits you wanted to escape. Now, you feel different. Your reactions are different. Your desires are different. The things that mattered to you a month ago feel meaningless now. The things you ignored before, prayer, presence, gratitude, forgiveness, feel priceless today. This realization hits you during sujood. Not forcefully, not painfully, just truthfully. When your forehead touches the ground, you feel a closeness to Allah that wasn't there before. You whisper a dua you've never said before. Ya Allah, don't let me go back to who I was. Because deep down, you know He is changing you. You can feel it in your patience, your kindness, your self-control, your sense of purpose. You rise from sujood with a strange mix of peace and strength, the kind that doesn't come from inspiration, but from transformation. When Taraweeh ends and you walk out into the cool night air, you finally admit what your heart has known for days. Ramadan didn't just soften you. It renewed you, rebuilt you, redirected you. And tonight, you see it clearly. You are not the same person anymore. The last night, the last tear, the beginning of everything. The final night of Taraweeh always arrives faster than the heart is prepared for. No matter how many Ramadans you've lived through, this night feels different, heavier, quieter, sacred in a way that makes your chest tighten with both gratitude and fear. Gratitude because Allah allowed you to reach this night, and fear because you know this moment will not come again until an entire year has passed. You walk into the masjid slowly, almost cautiously, as if you're afraid to break the fragile beauty of this night. The lights feel softer. The murmured duas sound more emotional. Every person around you carries a look of longing. The longing of someone who doesn't want to let go. When the final Taraweeh begins, the recitation feels like a farewell. The Imam's voice carries a weight you didn't notice before. A gentle tremble, a quiet depth, a sincerity that reaches into the deepest corners of your heart. Every verse tonight feels like it's telling you, take this with you when Ramadan leaves. Hold on to this light when the nights become ordinary again. And you listen, not with your ears, with your soul. During the last sujood, something inside you breaks open. A tear falls, not out of sadness alone, but out of realization. A realization that this month didn't just give you blessings. It gave you yourself back. It gave you clarity. It gave you softness. It gave you hope. In that sujood, you whisper the dua every believer whispers on this night. Ya Allah, accept everything, every stumble, every tear, every prayer, every moment I tried. Don't let this change fade. And for the first time, you actually believe he will. When the Imam recites the final words of the Quran, a wave of silence falls over the masjid. The kind of silence that only comes from hearts that are breaking and healing. At the same time, some people cry openly, others close their eyes, holding everything inside. You simply stand there, breathing, letting the moment imprint itself into your memory. As you walk out for the last time this Ramadan, the night air feels colder, but your heart feels warmer than ever. You're not the person who walked into the first Taraweeh. You're someone stronger, softer, more aware, more connected. And as the moonlight hits your face, one final truth settles inside you. Ramadan may be ending, but the version of you it created is just beginning. This isn't the end of the journey. It's the start of a new you, one who carries the light of Taraweeh into the rest of your life.